Getting lost in a world is one of the best feelings a game can give you, and some of the games that evoke that feeling best are turn-based RPGs. I mean, you can play as a frog in this game. How can you not love turn-based RPGs? The worlds these developers create have some of the best music, atmosphere, character designs, and world building of any genre. Those aspects and more is what makes them so great. The love and care put into these games really shows, but one area where a lot of these games tend to lack substance is the combat. Now, that's not to say that there aren't RPGs that mix up the typical turn-based formula like Paper Mario with its timed attacks or Baten Kaitos with its card system. However, the combat in a lot of more traditional turn-based RPGs that I actually really love is often the one aspect of them that tends to take me from being immersed to being bored to tears. This overly simple combat tends to eventually make me have existential dread as I mash the A button until I can get back to the fun adventure. This is the whole reason a lot of games try to add variety or gimmicks to this formula, such as Final Fantasy games adding the ATB system, which forces you to make decisions under a time limit, adding some tension. However, once you get used to these kinds of variations on the formula, many games can still easily turn back into a grind fest where sometimes the only reason you might die in a fight is because you forgot to heal before the encounter. All this is turned on its head in most tactical RPG games where you're fighting far fewer encounters where you can stop at a shop before each one and your characters begin each fight with full health. To compensate for this, each fight involves much more complex and varied decisions as well as much more challenging opponents. If you make smart enough decisions in battle with the complex options you have, you can overcome really difficult encounters and have moments where you feel like Jimmy Neutron for solving these tactical puzzles. In a more traditional RPG, you tend to only feel that kind of feeling in a challenging boss battle, but most of the fights you'll be fighting on the way to those boss fights are pretty simple and can tend to be unengaging, where your decisions in battle boil down to attack, heal, use magic, or use ability. All of these tend to be pretty easy decisions to make once you've been playing the game for a while, and most games give you unlimited time to make them. The lack of strategy needed for these decisions can lower the tension in a fight to the point of it feeling like busy work, where you find yourself asking, "What am I fighting for?" Okay, I'm kidding, but the simple addition of movement on a field to the turn-based formula adds so many interesting decisions to the tactics of a battle, and it allows for much more nuance to be added to the combat system. For instance, you can now have the different types of character classes mean so much more, such as archers now being more than just a different type of damage, they can actually attack from a range, complicating how you position your different units. The turn orders matter a lot more now, and some tactical RPGs even have an action point system where you can really manipulate the turn orders to your advantage. Your position on the field also affects the ways that you can attack, such as that you can now backstab people like it's Assassin's Creed, or you can have combo attacks based on multiple characters' positioning. All this and much more makes the decision-making in a tactical RPG much more strategically complex and gives way to long, drawn-out battles where each move can mean a lot. What tactical RPGs tend to do worse is the sense of adventure and world building, because the developers tend to pour all their effort into the battle systems, so the story and world tend to suffer. Also, these more complex and long drawn-out battles can, for some, feel like they're going on forever and forever and forever! This, combined with the fact that many have no real-world map to journey through, just points on a map you walk across, as well as explorable towns and fun NPCs to interact with being a rarity, many people won't feel as engaged or immersed in these worlds. But personally, what I tend to look for most in an RPG is a great combat system, so this doesn't bother me too much. But hey, every game has a different balance of what it does great, so here's some great tactical RPGs you can try that all have different appeals for different kinds of players. Arc the Lad is a great game to be your first tactical RPG because the combat and character customization is a little more simplified than usual, and the sense of adventure, world building, and exploration is especially good here with top-notch pixel art. Furthermore, Arc the Lad is quite short compared to many tactical RPGs, so it's not as much of a time commitment, so you can tell if the genre is for you without having to play a 40-hour game. Some drawbacks to this game are that the story is quite cliche, however it's fun and lighthearted and gives a good sense of adventure. Also, the combat can get a little too easy at points if you're experienced in tactical RPGs, or if you happen to spend any amount of time grinding levels. However, if you try to blaze through the game, you will be challenged. If you're looking for a bit more of a challenge, check out the Tactics Ogre games. The Tactics Ogre series took the few tactical RPGs that came before it and refined that formula into a diamond, and it ended up hugely influencing the genre since its first release on the Super Nintendo. I recommend you play the PSP port of this one, and if you really want a more balanced and complete experience, I recommend downloading the One Vision mod, which is a fan project to balance the game and make more classes and strategies viable, as well as making the difficulty and pacing of the game better, which I'll link in the description below. This series doesn't really have any gimmicks to set it apart, so to say, but what this game does to refine the basics of a tactical RPG is nearly unmatched, and it plays like a dream. With so much character customization and so many strategies to approach the game with, as well as control of up to 12 characters, the gameplay stays fresh throughout due to incredibly solid mechanics. Also, there's a great optional feature called the Chariot system, which allows you to go backwards in time up to 50 turns, which is great for beginners who might not want to reset an entire battle because of a few errors, and it's totally optional for veterans of the game. The downside to this game is there's not much of a sense of exploring the world, and that can detract from getting immersed in the game. Also, the story could fall flat for some people. It's all steeped in political intrigue and warring factions that can sometimes feel like reading a wiki page of lands and lords that you don't really know or care about yet. However, some people love this story, and some people also don't need a big world map to explore, as long as the battles are top-notch. Personally, I think the story is just okay, and I couldn't care less that there was no exploration, because the real reason I played this game for 60 plus hours is that the gameplay sinks its hooks into you and never stops being the perfect amount of challenge. For someone who does want to play a great story, I would recommend Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Though it is geared towards kids, its story doesn't shy away from heavy subjects, and it really makes you care about the characters. It sets up an interesting world and moves the plot in this world with believable and well-explored character motivations, not just your typical, we are fighting because we're at war, or that an evil spirit is threatening to destroy the world. The YouTuber Clemps has a really great video on what makes the story so compelling, and it's a really fun watch, so I'll link that in the description below. What they also mention in that video is the biggest complaint people have about this game, the judgment system. Basically, every match you have certain moves that are banned in the battle. Usually this doesn't get in the way, as it's only specific things that are banned, and it's meant to encourage you to use different strategies. However, when all physical attacks get banned in a game, it just makes you groan, as probably half your party can now barely do anything. The gameplay here is good, but in my opinion, it's not the star of the show. If you want a game that has great story as well as gameplay, look no further than my favorite tactical RPG, Stella Deus in the Gate of Eternity. Some people who know this game might be laughing right now because it's notorious for having horrendous voice acting.
Cram it in your soup hole. I've got it under control.
But honestly, that kind of thing is just hilarious to me, and I tend to play without sound when playing tactical RPGs, so I actually ended up really enjoying the story where a lot of people probably couldn't take it seriously at all. It deals with many themes, mainly religion and how people can be controlled and manipulated. The characters are solid and develop over the course of the game, and the super unique atmosphere and art style of this game are a huge part of what will draw you into the world. However, even though the story is good, the real reason I love this game so much is the incredible combat system. This game has you using action points to do anything, even moving. This complicates strategizing exponentially, and with the addition of combo attacks based on character positioning, the battle system becomes super addicting. This is a very challenging game, and I recommend you do 1 or 2 of the labyrinth levels before doing each next story battle, as this will leave you at a good level to make the challenge tough, but balanced throughout the whole game. As for criticisms of Stella Deus, I would say that even though the atmosphere and world is so good, like many tactical RPGs, the exploration of this world is basically non-existent. Also, if you're not willing to play levels not related to the story just to get your characters strong enough to progress, then this will be a tough sell for you. But for me, it's the best gameplay I've found for my taste in a tactical RPG, and that's what matters most to me. There are so many great RPGs out there, tactical or not, and it may come off like I don't like traditional turn-based RPGs in this video from all my criticisms, but that's definitely not the case. I mean, come on, you can save your game at a frog in this one. But I think that even though the tactical RPG genre is becoming more mainstream with games such as Fire Emblem, they still need more love, so please leave a comment of your favorite tactical RPGs, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.